So welcome, good morning. This is a great introduction to Google Drive for those of you who are here because you're looking to learn more about Google Drive or to help your students and maybe their families learn more about Google Drive. Hopefully you'll be able to take away some tidbits for use in your classroom. My name is Lynn Hilt and I'm from the IU. I work for the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum. We've been creating these sessions to help support you in your work. And if you need anything at all after this session, please reach out to me. My email is on this slide. And on the next slide, I'm going to give you the short link for this slide deck. So the way that I build my slides is by kind of linking to different resources and ideas and tutorials and support sites for the topic that the slides are covering. So you'll have access to those after the session is over, and you can use them as you wish. You can share them with colleagues if they couldn't be here. We, of course, are recording this, so you will be able to find this in our on-demand section of the website. After the session is over, we usually get it turned around in about an hour or so. So thanks for joining us, and I'm going to stop my vid. Today we're really just truly focusing on Drive, and the reason that we're doing that is because Drive to me is the organizational hub of Google Suite for education. And if you can get really good command over your Drive and understand how it's all organized and how sharing works, then you can be a really fluent user in G Suite. So Google Drive is the cloud storage service that syncs with all of the devices that you're using. It syncs across platforms. So whether you're a Windows user or a Chromebook user or a Mac user, or you just use it on an iPad, you can still access your Drive. It is a space for you to create new documents, new spreadsheets, new files and folders, but it's also a place where you can upload existing files and folders. So in this move to distance learning, you might be considering how having things saved locally on a documents folder, or hopefully not, but sometimes this happens on your desktop of your device, isn't quite as convenient if you want to access it anytime, anywhere. Sometimes schools will set up things where you can access a drive virtually, but honestly, I've never had as much success with accessing my stuff than I have using Drive. There is no doubt in my mind that from anywhere or any device, I can get what I need and do what I need to do with it from that time with very little issue. We're going to talk about converting files using Drive as well, because a lot of you certainly have used Microsoft products, the Office suite. You might have a ton of PowerPoints or Word files saved, and you might have questions about how to convert those and use them successfully in Drive. And you have a couple options with that. We'll talk about sharing features and make sure you understand how to collaborate with others via Drive. And don't forget, if your school is a Google for Education school and you were given a Google for Education account, which I believe most of the districts in our county do have access to, you have unlimited storage in your Google Drive. Now, that is a huge point that we don't always sell enough, because if you're constantly filling up, let's call it the Z drive on your school device or something like that with documents and videos, multimedia, that kind of stuff really bogs down hard drive space. But in your Google for Education account, you can throw as much stuff in there as you'd like to store it safely, whether that's the only place you store it or whether it's a backup. So we'll talk about that as well. Like I said, you have anytime, anywhere access. I typically use it on the desktop version. This is actually an old screenshot. We don't have the red button anymore. But you can go through the web. I highly recommend using Google Chrome. If you are using G Suite, you'll just get the most function out of it if you're using Google Chrome as your browser. You'll occasionally run into issues using things like Internet Explorer, which is the absolute worst to work with G Suite. And even Safari on a Mac will sometimes give you issues. This is what it looks like on an iOS. So on my iPhone, just really clean, looks the same. You can do pretty much everything on that platform or an iPad that you could on the web. And you just need to install the app. So if you're an iPad or iPhone user or Android phone user and you want to access your drive, just go to your app store and find the app, and then you can put it there, and then you just add your Google account. And you can have multiple Google accounts. I have on my phone 5 or 6 Google accounts, and I can really easily toggle back and forth between all of my drives. So that's something to think about if you're getting into using Drive more and more. So we're going to go through all the features of Drive. I'm going to go out into my Drive and show you how it's a little bit messy right now, which is not what I prefer to show you. But we're going to look at the priority inbox space, which some of you might not have turned on in your domain. One thing I want to talk to you about with G Suite is that your Google for Education administrators, whoever they are on the tech side, whoever's managing that, they can turn things on and off for your organization. They can manage the things that you are permitted to do and not permitted to do. And so certain schools might see the priority workspace and others might not. And that's a matter of, again, your team behind the scenes enabling or disabling options. Sometimes they don't even know those options exist. Some schools are on what we call rapid release. If you're a rapid release school, you get the new features that roll out almost immediately after they're available. If you're not rapid release, it might take a few weeks or longer, depending on how often your tech team checks for updates. So we're going to go through that left-hand side of Google Drive and look at the different view modes, the sharing with me. Everybody's always up in arms about that and what it really means. We're going to look at search tips, organizational tips, sharing options, and then the importing, converting, and exporting files. There is a cheat sheet developed by the Google Apps team that you can click on and you can refer to if you ever need help with that. So this is like a little map of Google Drive, the main interface, and I labeled all the pieces. So if you're ever wondering, what are these lines? What do those mean? What is this little gear wheel? The longer you use G Suite, the more familiar you're going to become with the icons, because they try to stay consistent with the icons throughout all of the apps. For example, your little figures, they are normally associated with things like sharing. So if you always look for the little people, that's where your share options are going to be. Your waffle guy here, I call him the waffle, that's your apps chooser. So if you click on that in any app, you're going to have access to all of your other apps. This is almost always the settings. So understanding that gear wheel. So let's pop out here. So here's my drive. Now you can see this looks a little different than the one that we just looked at, but not really. I just have a different view in place. So right now I am in grid view. I typically don't stay in grid view, but I've been in grid view for a couple of weeks now and I don't hate it. This is where you toggle back and forth between the view, and there's nothing right or wrong about any view. It's just what you prefer most. So if I click that, now it will change into list view, and it will give you a little bit more information. However, in list view, for example, I can scroll down now, and where the folders are, I can see the owner of the folders. I could not see that right off the bat in grid view. Now I'm amassing a lot of folders, which is probably why I stuck with grid view in this space. Now, some of you might have this quick access bar at the top. These files are the things that you have opened recently or used recently. So this is an attempt to help you quickly find and open things that you might need right away, which has been helpful because last night I was tinkering around with these slides. So now when I go in my drive, they're right here for me and I can just click to open them. Okay, so that's the quick access. If you don't like that, you can take it off, and I'll show you how to do that. In grid view, your folders are all kind of listed like this, and you can see some of mine have a color code, and I'll talk to you about that. And then anything that is not foldered just kind of shows up in this main list, and this is what I'm embarrassed about because I typically folder all my stuff. And so for this, grid view shows you a little preview of the document, whereas list view, just like it says, the name says, it just lists it out for you. But again, the helpful thing about list view is you can see who the owner is, you can see the date that you last modified it, and you can see the file size if that's applicable. So those are the two different views that you can take a look at. Now, priority, if this is new to you, this is a way to view your work through a series of workspaces. And workspaces are not folders so much as they are, consider them like a physical desktop. Like if you had 6 desks in your house, I think you can have 8, and you have folders and documents all around distance learning, and you stack up all of your documents and folders around distance learning on that tabletop, that's what this is. These are all of the things that relate to work with an EPIC grant. Now, these things can all be located in different folders. So maybe I'm working, maybe I need to reference something from the Pennsylvania Science Standards folder that I have for the EPIC grant, and I want to locate it in my workspace. I can add anything to my workspace from any folder. So if I have, for example, a gifted network meeting coming up, I almost always will go to priority and then gifted network, and I could just keep the things handy that I need to help for planning and preparation for that. So that's what a priority workspace is. And I was using them a lot when we were in the office. I haven't used them as much lately just because I've mostly been doing all the PD and stuff like that. But they can be helpful. And you can delete them when you're done. Like if you're working on a big project and then the project ends, you can remove the workspace. It will not delete any of the files that are in there. It's essentially just like an organizing space for you. Okay, so that's priority. Now, my drive contains all of the things that you have created as an owner or anything that you have intentionally added to your drive. And we're going to talk about that because there are things located in my drive that technically I am not the owner of, but I have purposely added them to my drive. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Also on the left-hand side, there's these tiny little arrows, and if you drop down, there are all your folders as well. So sometimes during cleanup, I was doing some of this last night, sometimes during cleanup, I will drop down those left-hand folders, then I will grab my item just with one click, and then I will click and drag and drop that way to start cleaning up this mess here. It's way easier to drag and drop over to the side than it is to kind of scroll up the page and drop it in there somewhere else, okay? Now, what I want to say is you can do things a lot of different ways in Drive. So you can do the same action of moving this file to a folder a couple of different ways. I almost always drag and drop. That's just my deal. But if you don't like that, here's option 2. I clicked on the document, this PDF. By the way, if you're looking at these pictures, like, what are these pictures? When President Clinton came to Kutztown in 1995, Our government teacher took us to see him at the store that's down the road on 222, and that's me right there. So isn't that cool? So I needed those for a project. So click the file, and option 2 is go up to your toolbar here, okay? When you click on a file or folder, you have some options here, and get to know those triple dots. Click Move To. Okay, so the triple dots are another menu. Click Move To, and now I can choose the folder that I want it to go to. Now you can see why maybe drag and drop is a faster option sometimes, because I don't, really want to. I'm just going to do this here. Move that there. Here's another option if you don't want to go up to that menu. Also note, there is no menu here right now. And sometimes teachers get confused and they'll say, I don't have that menu. First, you have to actually click on an item and then the menu appears. So don't be alarmed if you don't have those options up there, okay? So my other choice is to right click on any item in the drive. If I right click on any item, I essentially get that whole menu with one right click right in my workspace. So now I can do anything with that document. I can share it, I can preview it, I can add it to a workspace, I can move it to a certain folder, I can add it to my starred menu and all that kind of good stuff. So right click is your friend in Google Drive. If you ever try to figure out, how do I move this? Right click, move it. Right click, add to workspace. And while we're here, let's do a right click on a folder. Because if you right click on a folder, you get an option to rename the folder, which you might need to do sometimes. And here is change the color. So if you are someone who is like me and very motivated by color organization, I probably want to make that green because I have a green, then you can use that option, right click, change color. Okay, so my drive, these are all the things that I've created or things I have intentionally added to Google Drive. Now that next field down is called shared drives. Some of you have shared drives enabled in your domain, and some of you do not, okay? I will admittedly jump around in this presentation, so don't be alarmed. Shared drives used to be called team drives when they first started, and what that means is that shared drives contain items that are owned by the drive. So they are not owned by individual users. Anything found inside a shared drive is owned by the drive. And the reason that was created was because schools and organizations were finding that when a teacher transferred to another school district or retired or went out on maternity leave, that if they had to disable their account, what happens was that everything owned by that user was essentially gone. It would be taken out of access for anyone else who was not the owner. So things that are located in a grade 5 drive, for example, belong to grade 5 drive. You can add certain members of the team. You can manage the members and give them certain levels of permission. And if you drop a lesson planning template into there, okay, it is accessible by all the members of the team. And if one of the members of the team moves to a different grade level next year and you take them out of the drive, anything that that person contributed to the drive remains in the drive. It does not get moved or taken away if something happens with their account. So at OPDC, we use a handful of shared drives. Like we have a master teacher drive for the people who work with Epic. We have a drive for our whole team where 30 people have access to all the stuff in there. One just for our admin. There's a PA Smart. So you can see these are organized by topic or by department or by meeting group. So those are shared drives. And then everyone has shared with me. Shared with me is an interesting space. It is not a folder. It is a filter. And that is one thing that's very hard for some folks to understand. It is not a folder. I cannot create a folder in Shared with Me and start dragging and dropping things into it. I cannot organize this. And that is one thing that drives teachers bonkers, which I totally understand because you want to be organized in this space. But here are all of the things that someone either directly shared with me via email address. Let me get a list view. For example, the slides that I use today are based off of slides that I built in my consulting account. So I shared that with my work account. This was directly added as a user to my Berks County IU account, and that's why it shows up here. But there are a ton of things in here that were not shared with my account that I simply opened. And once you open a shared document that is view by link or public on the web, once you open that up, it's going to show up in your Shared with Me. So if you spend as much time as I do looking for resources online to support your learners, you end up opening dozens of things a day. These are all things that I've been looking through for research, for hyperdocs, for choice boards, all this kind of stuff. Anytime I open that up, it's going to show up and Shared with Me. So what this means for you is that Shared with Me can quickly become a nightmarish place for someone who wants to be organized. But especially too, if you have kids sharing content with you. What I would recommend is that if you find something, let me find something that I want to add to my drive. If I find a document that I want to folder in some organized way or always know where to find it, I'm going to click on it one time. So you can see it's blue at the bottom here. And now I'm going to go to this very important button here. It's called Add to My Drive. That button, let me zoom in because it's very important. Can I zoom in? There we go. Add to My Drive. That button will locate that shared document also in your drive. It's going to make it accessible in your drive, and then once it's added to your drive, you can organize it in any folder that makes sense for you. So I'm going to click Add to My Drive, and right from there, I can actually click the word Organize, and I can put it exactly in a folder where I'd like it to go. It might be alarmed because I'm so zoomed in. So this should be loading my folders. Let me do it again. Let's do this one. Add to my drive, organize. What? It's going wild. Second grade hyperdoc. Add to my drive. Oh, it's moving over there. It's driving me crazy. This will bring up your folders and then you can move it. My drive has admittedly been a little sluggish lately when I start to do things like that, and I was worried about that for today. So the question is, can you drag and drop if you click my drive arrow on the left? So let's do that. It has been added to your drive with a drag and drop as well. So that is another option. Now, if you're, good question. Now, if you're ever wondering, did I already put this in my drive? Two things. One is that if you click on it and you see that button, you know it's not in your drive. If you click on it and you don't see the add to my drive button, you instead see move, that means it is in your drive already. And just as a side note, whenever you open up a document, once it fully loads and the title is shown here, there's always a folder to the right of it that shows you where it's located. And if you click that, you'll see exactly which space it went into. And you can even move it from there. You can even add a new folder if you wanted to from there. So always look for that piece. Okay. So that was the add to my drive feature, which I have listed here just to remind you to do that. Now that add to my drive, that is not making a copy of the file. It is not making a copy of it. It is simply also loading it. Now, Christine says, mine says add shortcut to drive, not add to my drive. She is on a rapid release domain because what is happening over the course of the next several weeks with Google Drive, which always makes my life really fun when I'm doing trainings, is that they are taking away the ability to locate files in more than one place. This upsets me for a number of reasons because I use that feature a lot. Some people didn't even know it existed. So what Christine, I'm sorry, is that who it was? Christine is seeing is that instead of locating the file in more than one place, it's creating a shortcut to the original. So yes, do add a shortcut to my drive. And I'm wondering if I pull up my BCIU account, I don't believe is on rapid release. But my Google trainer account is. So let me see if I can get in it to see what you see, because I would prefer to see what you see. Oops. Shared with me here. Okay. This is what she's seeing. I'm glad you pointed that out because it's different for everybody. Add a shortcut to Drive to open this file from wherever you need it. So that's essentially what you're doing. You're locating it in your Drive via shortcut instead of actually locating the file two different times. So add shortcut to Drive, but it works the same way. You can go into the exact folder that you want to do and add shortcut, okay? Or like we talked about, once you're in shared with me, if you want to, I don't have a lot of folders in here, so let me just do an example folder. Add that here. Now I'll go to shared with me. We talked about taking it and dragging and dropping too. And it says has been added to example folder, okay?
So Lynn,
yeah.
it works the same. It's just that I'm in rapid release mode as per the district.
Yes. It's
and rapid release, could you just, again, that means that?
That means, what district are you in?
Reading.
Okay. That means that when something is updated in Google Drive or any of the apps, or a new feature rolls out, it goes out as soon as possible to the users in that domain, that nobody on the back end has to click a button saying, okay, put the updates through. It automatically puts the updates through.
Good to know.
Yeah, so you're seeing that maybe before somebody else. Well, definitely before my domain, because I don't have that yet. So some districts prefer to do rapid release. Some prefer to look at all the updates and then decide how they want to push it out. So you're
okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're on rapid release. Okay. So actually in the slides, I did have a little note about adding files to more than one folder. And as you start to experience what she is experiencing in that, you may not be able to do that. The keyboard command was Shift Z. And when you do Shift Z, you can bring up your little folder image. And it does still work. So I just think they're the difference isn't how it's going to act, it's really just how it is on the back end. So I think you will still be able to do that if you prefer. Okay, so we looked at shared with me, the left-hand side menu does not have much else here. There is a recent menu. Lots of people rely on the recent menu, but I do want to say that the recent menu won't just list things that you updated recently. It will list things that are associated with you in some way, like if it's in your shared with me, or if it's in a folder you have in your drive and someone else updates it, it's going to list here. So that might be confusing for you. Might make sense to use that quick access instead. Then the starred menu has all the folders and all the files that you star. Just like in Gmail, when you star something, like let's say I want my classroom folder that syncs with Google Classroom to be starred, I can right click, add to starred, or the other choice is to go up to the triple dots and add to starred. So now anything with a star is going to be located in my starred menu for quick and easy access. The more things you star, if you don't unstar things, this is just going to become like a list of craziness. But it's good that that's an option for people who like to use stars to organize stuff. And then there's the trash. So if you delete things from my drive, it will remain here for about 30 days before it's purged. And things that are purged are no longer accessible to you. There is a very good chance that someone in your tech department could retrieve it if it was some kind of super valuable item that should not have been trashed. But as far as your interface is concerned, you can't get to it past 30 days. If you wanted to, you can empty your trash. I never worry about trash because of the unlimited file storage. If I trash something, I trash it. And here's your storage. So I'm using 3 gigs, but remember this is a school account, so I have unlimited storage, so I don't have to worry about that. If you're on a private account, lots of you have your own Gmail. If you're on a private account, this is more of a big deal. Here is I pay $2.99 a month or $1.99 a month for 100 gigs of storage in my personal Google Drive, and I'm at 60 right now. And it's affordable, but I like having it. I back up all my photos here as well. So that's a difference between a personal account and a school account. Also, in terms of storage, folders, Google Docs, any of this stuff does not count against your storage. The only thing that counts against your storage are things like uploaded videos, uploaded photos, Word documents, PowerPoint files, but the things that are located within G Suite, these don't count against your drive storage totals, which is very nice. Okay, so that's the left-hand sidebar. And remember, whenever you click something, you can right-click to get your options for it, or you can click it one time and you can go up to your triple dots. Now, there is a info button where you can get information about the folder, about the file, when it was last modified, when it was opened, when it was created, who the owner is. You can do that for any thing you have in your drive. If it's a PDF, you can see the size that it's contributing. You can even click here and see the different versions if modifications were made. You can add descriptions. You can see the creation of the or you can see the sharing settings from there. Here's like a thing I made for a Google Classroom. So here, all the teachers that are in my shared classroom have editing privileges over that. So the info button is kind of interesting if you want to see, who the original creator is. So that's the little I under view details. The question is, how do you change PDF to Google Doc? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Some cases it works really well and others not so much. All right, let's talk about sharing settings. So we talked about all the things that you can do with files and folders, move them, star them, rename them. Don't forget downloading. If for some reason you need to download the actual file to your device, if it's a photo, if it's a video, if it's a PDF, you can do that with the download menu, okay? And in terms of sharing, let's talk about your two options for sharing here. So for sharing, you can share by direct at a person. Remember we said about looking for the little person. And then you can just type their name in and their email address, their Google account. They'll need their Drive to access it if you want editing privileges. Here are the options for editing. Can edit, can comment only, or can view. And if you want to leave a little note, you can. Click send. That's the quick and easy way. If you're using your school account, it will warn you if you are sharing with somebody outside the domain, but I'm okay with that because it was me. You can also click on something you own. Let me get that here. What do I want to share? Maybe this, no. Trying to find a good example. And I can enable shareable links. So if I click one time on that link button, it tells me link sharing is off. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in for you, but it's not really panning out. Link sharing is off. It is a private file, just like anything new that you create in Google Drive is private to you unless your district set it up otherwise. And then click turn on. Now, my school default is that if I turn on link sharing, anybody at BCIU who has the link can view it. That would not help me if I wanted to send that document to my husband's account because he does not have a BCIU email. So I need to do one more thing before I open this up. If you want to share something with parents, you cannot limit it to your school domain sharing unless they are being directed to sign in as their child. So click on sharing settings to get more options. And now this is the default for me. Anybody at BCIU with the link can view, but that's not going to cut it. So I'm going to need to click advanced. And I'm going to, again, see this option. So I'm going to need to click change. And here is where you can go for link sharing on. Anyone with the link can access, no sign-in required. So now if I just want to publish a document with a link and share it with a group of people in my community, I can do that. They don't have to sign in with any kind of Google account. This one is full on public on the web. If somebody did a very detailed search, they could essentially find the document. So most of the time in education, we choose this, anybody with the link, and we share the link in places like emails or on websites and things like that. So now I'll have to also decide viewing privileges only. You can give everybody with the link editing privileges if that was something you need, or commenting privileges. So on anyone with the link, save that, okay? Two more options you have as the owner. You can prevent anybody you've added as an editor from changing the document access and adding new people. So you can prevent them from doing that. You can also disable options to download a file, print a file, or copy a file for anyone who has view privileges. If you've ever opened a Google Doc example and you could not use file, make a copy, that's what they did for that. Now, of course, there are always workarounds and you can always print things in all sorts of ways, but maybe you don't want download options, you can choose that. And then you can click Save Changes. And now it's been shared, okay? And I know how things are shared because in my list view, if I see little heads next to my document, that's been shared, shared, shared. So it's been shared either with an individual or it's been shared with a group or by a link, okay? So that's the trick about that. So any questions about sharing from Drive or comments about that? We talked about shared drives. So let's talk about file conversions and uploads. So inside Drive, of course, that's the easiest place to start if you want to create any of this new stuff. If you want to create a new doc, a sheet, a slide, you click on your new button. The first thing it defaults to is folder, and everything else that you have associated, the apps you have associated with your Google account show up here. The most popular ones are first. I say up through sites, you have at least that in your domain. So that's the easiest place to start something new. But you can also conduct a new file upload from here, where you would go out to your computer and click the file wherever it's saved, and then click open. And down in the bottom right, Google Drive is going to tell you the status of that upload. And then it's going to let you see the folder where you saved it. In this case, it's just in my Drive. This is going to be in my new Zoom background, the Great Hall at Hogwarts. And so all of the upload statuses are going to be shown for you in this bottom right hand corner. If you're doing multiple files, it's going to list all the files. So new file upload, you can upload entire folders of things as well. If you are using Google Chrome, you cannot do it on any other browser. But this is something as you're planning for the end of the year and into next year, if you want to start transitioning your stuff into Drive versus saving it locally, this is a great option. Drive, folder upload, go grab I don't even think I have any folders. Go grab a folder and upload that whole thing, and it'll take care of everything for you. Now, you can also, from your desktop, whether it's a Mac or a PC, if you have a documents folder, you can take something and you can drag and drop it. And I'm not going to do that because that's a huge folder. But you can take it, you can drag and drop it. And if you noticed, it turned blue. Drag and drop. And it's saying at the bottom, do you want to drop files to instantly upload them to my Drive? Yes, I do. So that's just a saved text, so I can do that from a Zoom meeting. And there's my progress. So you can drag and drop. Now, the question you have to ask yourself before you start doing all this is, how do you want Drive to treat your files when you upload them? Do you want them, let me get to this here. Yeah, we didn't do this yet. Do you want them to stay in their original format? Do you want them to maintain Microsoft Word formatting? Do you want them to be a PowerPoint file? Or do you want to convert all of your uploads to Google Docs editor format? So that option is in your settings. And this is a good time to go into your settings and take a look at what that's offering you. So again, little gear wheel, your settings. There are not a lot of settings in Google Drive. This is basically it for you. Right now there's general. You can see my storage, words, words, words. This is the big one, convert uploads. Right now, I do not convert uploaded files to Google Docs editor format, which means that if somebody shares a Word document with me and I decide to upload it into Drive, like if somebody emails one as an attachment, which would just be terrible practice at this point, that when I bring it into Drive, it's going to stay as a Word doc. If you don't prefer that, like in some of my other accounts, I certainly don't do that. Because in my actual life, I don't use Word unless I am forced to. I don't even have Word. I don't have Office on my computers. I only have it on one computer. So right now, when I bring in any file in this account, it automatically converts it to Docs for me. All right. Now, maybe I want to deal with that on a case-by-case basis, that's no problem. But if I check it now and I decide to convert uploaded files, it will stay checked for everything after that once I save this until I uncheck it again. Okay. Now I have a Word doc saved on my desktop or somewhere that I had to find for you. So new, and I can do file upload. So I'm going to go find that document. And you can see I don't even have the I don't even have the Word icon because I don't have Word on this computer. So this is a Word doc. It says Word document as the kind. So I'm going to click open. It's uploading it. And now when I open it, it looks something like this, right? If you've ever done this and you have this Word document, you haven't converted it, I can't click or anything in here. I can comment on Office things, no problem. But right now, I'm going to go to my open with option. For those of you who asked, how do I open PDFs as Google Docs? This is how you do it. Open with Google Doc. If you have a PDF that is really text or image heavy, has a lot of tables, you might not see anything come over the way you expect it to. And that's just the way that the PDF file type is designed. But what you can see now is that I am working with this document in Microsoft Word format. I have that little docx behind it. This is what it looked like. This is, there's still the table there and everything. If I need to update this, I saw there was a typo, so I'll go ahead and do that. So you can now edit Microsoft Documents from Office in Drive. So I know a lot of districts are kind of juggling both. There are tutorials here if you get stuck. There are some departments at BCIU who only use Office, but they can still share with us in Google Drive, and we can still access the content, and we can still make changes if needed. These are the file types that are supported editing through Drive for Office. But if you're dealing with documents older than Office 2007, when they're saved, it's going to give you a converted file to something newer. So I wanted to add that in there if you are dealing with that. So this is the open with command, okay? When you use open with, any connected apps that you use will also show up as an option. Like I use Cami sometimes to annotate PDFs. And so I can open PDFs with Cami, and then I can, edit them or do whatever I need to do from there. Let me find a PDF and let me try to kind of pull something out. See, that is very image heavy. So if I try to pull this out, let me see what it looks like. It's just kind of like trial and error with the PDF situation. But there is optical character recognition built in. So what this has done for my PDF is it has pulled all of the text out. So now I can go ahead and I can edit this text, but you'll notice the image that was included is not in my copy here. It didn't pull it out. It's scanning the PDF for editable text. And it works really great sometimes for simpler types of things. It does not work as great for very graphic, heavy, like this. This would be really rough. Let's see what it looks like. Open with Google Docs. So like I said, if you have a very simple PDF, it has sentences to edit, it has something like that. This pulled all of that person's text, whoever created that, it pulled it out. But there's really no semblance of what it looked like here in the new version, okay? But if there are things that are very text, I don't want to show you any of these because they're confidential, but this would pull out all the text. So if you get stuck, then go ahead and use the open with doc, okay? Google Docs. So let me pop here. We have done a lot of this. And you can actually do that right from your drive as well. You don't even have to open the file. You can right click on it, right click, open with, and then you should get that option there from the right click menu. All right. We did that. We did the uploading. We did, the downloading. You can also, when you're working in a Google Doc or in Sheets or Slides, file, download. If you need to present your finished work in a specific format, like I know sometimes in a platform like IEP Writer or something, you have to upload a Word doc. You don't have a choice, or you have to upload a PDF. You can do that from this space, download as PDF, and then it will save that to your computer. And then you can add that download to whatever service that you're using. I know sometimes for graduate work, they require a certain file type. So even if you start creating in a G Suite app, you can download it into Office. You can download it into PDF. Depending on the service, like Sheets, you can download it to CSV if you need to upload something somewhere else. So you have a lot of options that way, and the versatility of how you share and how you download. All right, so I think we hit most of our stuff here. Organizational tips and tricks we talked about in the very beginning, just going through using the quick access space, using the starred menu. Oh yeah, I want to show you the search. Sometimes people just look up here, they see it up here, search and drive, but they don't really comprehend the power of this. Google Drive was created to serve, to work in a space without folders. But we're so accustomed to using folders in our file organization, but Drive is meant to function totally on search. If you learn how to name your files and folders accordingly, you can find anything in Drive really easily. And if you learn how to use the search operators, you can do that too. Like you can find file type is doc, and it will filter out, well, maybe if I learned the search operators, that would be good. File type is doc, you can search that whole thing, and maybe it's not, it might be document. There we go, document. These are all my documents. Includes Word docs too. And you can search it out. If you want to find things that are only owned by a certain user, let me see if I can search for all Danny's stuff. Here are all the things that are owned by Danny. So this is a way to filter your Drive stuff, right? And quickly and easily find things. So that's a search operator, owner, colon, and then the email address of the person. Now, you don't have to memorize those because there's a drop-down arrow right here called search options. And if I click that arrow, now I can search for any type. So maybe I only want to find my videos. You can search by any owner. So maybe I want to find videos not owned by me. And where is it located? Where do you remember having it last? You can go into the specific folder and find where it might be. Maybe you're looking for something that was very recent, yesterday, last 7 days. You can custom search for part of the term, a term that matches part of the name, has the words in the file, who it might be shared with, and then you can click search. Minus owner me means I'm not the owner. These are all videos that I have accessed or have been shared with me that are videos owned by other people. So all of that can just be filtered really quickly with your search options, and you don't have to memorize any of the operators. It's fun to use the operators, to learn them, but you don't have to. So just to clarify, you cannot put docs that were shared with me into a folder. You can locate them there. Yes, you can. Shared with me. Here's a doc. Oh, yeah, here's a doc. I can add to my drive and I can put in a folder. What I said earlier about folders is that you cannot build a folder in shared with me. You cannot organize shared with me. But if you want to add a document to your folders, you can either click and drag it over, or you can add to my drive from there. So yes, you can folder it, but it is the owner's original, and if he or she decides to delete it, you will lose access to it, okay? Now that's one of the things I wanted to make sure you understood with sharing, and we didn't look at this specifically. We did talk about sharing. That when you create a new document or a new folder, you are the owner and you have full privileges over the edits and the sharing. And the only person who can truly delete a file is the owner. So if I have a bunch of things in my shared with me that I don't need, but my biggest piece of advice to you is to not even worry about what's in shared with me. If you use it as much as I do, you can't get worked up about shared with me. So like here, I'm trying to find something I want to remove. I can click here, HyperDocs with District Tech Team. If I don't need that, I can always remove it from shared with me. It will not impact the original in any way because I'm not the owner. I can't delete that file, okay? So don't worry that if a colleague shares something with you or a principal shares a schedule with you and you viewed it and you're done, just remove it if you're trying to control this space. I gave up on that a long time ago and I've been happier ever since. So when you share with other users, they are accessing that same document that you created. They can, if you allow them view privileges, they can view it. If you allow them editing privileges, they can edit it. But if that person goes ahead and makes a copy, they are now the owner of the copy. And they control all the settings about it. They can make edits to their version of the copy. If you go back to your blue version and you make updates, it will not be reflected in that copied version. And I think sometimes people get confused about that. When we share docs in Drive, it's so that we can collaborate on the same document. And certainly there are times when you need to make your own copy and edit from there. But once you make a copy, your copy has no connection to that original document. And if original documents are updated or changed, your copy will not have that reflected. All right. So we talked about that. There's a trick if you need to help people, if you need to force copy something, if you want to share a link with them that will force them to copy. The /edit word is at the end of every Google Doc link or slides or sheets. If you change /edit to /copy and you copy and paste that into an email or to Google Classroom or a website, when they click on it, they're going to get that prompt to, let me do it for you. They're going to get the prompt to make a copy. It's going to look like that. So if at any time you want to force somebody to make a copy of your work, like if you're sharing something with a colleague, but you really don't want them to have access to the original, but you'd like for them to have their own copy, you can force them to make a copy when you share a link. So I added that there. Last thing, Google Drive, Save to Google Drive has an extension in Chrome that when you are out on the web, if you find a document, if you find a PDF and you want an image, even a whole website, you can click the extension and it will shoot it right to Google Drive. It's like magic. You don't have to download and then re-upload. It just sends it right there. So check that out if you're an extensions user. And as you're just becoming more familiar and comfortable, these are kind of all of the level 1 Google Drive skills. And if you can do these things, you can be considered a Google Drive master. So don't forget to fill out the bit.ly link for our Core Connections feedback, bit.ly/cc virtual feedback. And of course, we hope to see you at a future session. I'm going to stop the recording and thank you all for coming, and I'll be happy to take questions that you have.